418th time. Stop asking, Grimlock.
Are we there yet?
No.
I agree, Grimlock. I totally agree. Consider supporting the channel on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help us bring you more content like this. Hey guys, it's Rodimus Primal. I am back with another video, and today I'm finally bringing you guys my review for the last chapter of the Transformers Prime Wars Trilogy, Power of the Primes. Now, that's a tongue twister, but let me tell you guys something. I decided on Thursday, after the final episode, to watch the entirety of the Prime Wars trilogy. I had already watched all of the episodes, you know, as they came out, and as I said I would do, I would give you guys a review. Well, going through the entirety of the Prime Wars trilogy is an exhausting venture. I sat through all of Combiner Wars, I trudged through all of Titan's Return, and I watched all of Power of the Primes. And I'll be honest with you, after watching Power of the Primes, I don't dislike the series as much as I did Combiner Wars and Titan's Return. I think it was an improvement. Do I think it's the best series ever? Leaves a lot to be desired, and that really comes down to the fact that it's pretty much the same thing as the previous two series was. All of the same problems, from everything from the, you know, slow animation rate to the mouth flapping not matching what they're saying, to there not being enough characters, to characterizations in some cases that feel a little off. But at the end of it, there was quite a bit that I did enjoy, a lot that I picked up on, and watching it more than once actually gave me, you know, I kind of didn't feel like I hated it as much. Like at Titan's Return, I didn't care for the series, I didn't care for the way it ended, and I didn't care for, you know, Combiner Wars either. With Power of the Primes, it seems that they finally got their gears turning, and they finally got like their groove as to what they wanted to do with certain things. I still feel that, like, in some ways they could have done things better. They took a lot of elements from the G1 cartoon, they took elements from the IDW comics, they took elements from a whole bunch of different things to try and bring them together with this story. Now I'm going to be diving into spoilers because really when it breaks down to it, if you haven't watched it yet already, you can go watch it. If you're in the US, I know you can watch it on go90.com, which if you, as of this recording, it is supposed to be going offline July 30th, but after that point, I believe they're probably going to get the entire series on Machinima's YouTube page. I know that if you're outside of the US, you can probably watch it there. And you know, this is where I'm going to break down, because I wrote down pretty much a lot of notes, you know, going down to like the nitty gritty of certain things. And I'll start off with Mark Hamill. Seeing him at the end of Titan's Return was probably one of the highlights that actually, you know, one of the things about Titan's Return that I did like. But him as a villain throughout, you know, Power of the Primes, he's a good villain. You know, Mark Hamill really can deliver Megatronus being a villain, and he kind of sounds like, you know, when the Joker is like serious in the Batman animated series, that's kind of the voice that he brings to it. It's very, very stoic. It's very, very like cold and almost heartless in a way.
I will inflict unimaginable misery upon you until your spark is the last to fade.
I was really surprised at, like, you know, his motivations. Like, his motivation actually was the fact that he wants to revive Solus Prime, and in order to do so, he wants to kill every single Transformer in existence to bring her back to life, because apparently Solus Prime was turned into the Well of All Sparks in this universe, and she is pretty much the mother of all Transformers, so to speak. If you can look at it that way, is like Primus created the 13, and here Solus Prime is like the mother to all of Transformers in the Prime Wars Trilogy universe, which is kind of weird in an interesting way, though, because I guess pretty much they all reproduce from, you know, all the sparks reproduce from her. But the way that he goes out at the end is that Solus Prime actually like drags him down into the well of all sparks, and that obviously gives life to more. But as a villain, though, I mean, he's very powerful. He's able to blast away Transformers, you know, with ease. You know, he has like this firepower, which is kind of something that he had from the Dreamwave comics. He's more vicious in my eyes, I think, than, you know, his character was supposed to be in Transformers Prime or no, Transformers Robots in Disguise, and in the Revenge of the Fallen, because that's who he is. He's the Fallen, you know, character. The reason why he was called a Fallen, according to this universe, well, actually, I don't even think they call him the Fallen. No, that's right, they did call him in Titan's Return, is that he killed Solus Prime. And so that gave him the title of the Fallen. And again, I think his villain monologues are good. I think his powers are cool, even though he kind of looks, you know, again, like a Mega Man X villain. That's like one of the things about him that when he first appeared, I was kind of like, but now that he's, you know, you get to see him a lot more, I do think that he is a good villain. You know, the Requiem Blaster itself is an immensely powerful weapon that they are attempting to get, and it's hidden away because after Solus Prime was killed, the Requiem Blaster was then taken from, you know, Megatronus and locked away, and one of the Guardian that they end up coming to by episode 4 is Optimus Primal, who's played by Ron Perlman. And here's the thing, I've seen Ron Perlman in some really awesome movies, and he's always over the top. And here, it seems like he was held back. We could have really gotten like this Ron Perlman-like Optimus Primal, and instead he's very stoic, he's kind of robotic.
For as long as I can remember, I protected it. No other.
I'm like, it just didn't fit right with me, and it isn't the fault of Ron Perlman in my eyes. I honestly think that, and that kind of goes with every character that's in this, is that the dialogue is just really bad. The writing is, it could have been so much better. It kind of feels like it was a fan fiction written by somebody who really likes Transformers but doesn't really understand like how to make good dialogue work, or they weren't able to get a good voice director to get the voice acting in the series done well, because I truly believe that like you had so much good voice talent in this series, but they were all held back by the dialogue. And you know, that's where I feel Ron Perlman really suffers here, because I've seen him do really well. Obviously, the big surprise is at the end, he becomes Optimal Optimus, and I think it was really stupid to actually call him Optimal Optimus. He's Optimus Primal. His upgraded form is Optimus Primal. Optimal Optimus is just the name. Was kind of like one of those like throwaway things in Beast Wars, where Beast Wars Megatron was like, oh, we have a new Optimal Optimus. It was kind of like a joke because he's still just Optimus Primal. He's just, now he's got, you know, he's powered up. And he gets the Matrix of Leadership, and that's how he actually does so. And the reason why is because Hot Rod, or Rodimus Prime, after he gave up the Matrix, you know, was infected by the Matrix of Chaos, and we didn't know how or what he was infected with that actually turned him this black color. And we now find out in Power of the Primes that Overlord was sent by Megatronus to remove the spark of Unicron and put it into the Matrix of, you know, making the Matrix of Chaos, which I think is kind of silly, personally. But the Matrix of Chaos was inserted into Hot Rod, turning him into Rodimus Krong, which I think is kind of silly. I mean, the toy itself was called Rodimus Unicronus, and I think that kind of worked a little bit better. And his whole arc, where he's like straight up evil, you know, I'm a Rodimus Prime fan, so it kind of makes me feel like you're taking my favorite character and basically twisting him on purpose and making him evil so that he can never be a Prime again. I didn't like that. And he's completely, warped by it. And by the end, they eventually remove the Matrix of Chaos from him, and he goes back to being Hot Rod again. But it's like you completely like bastardize his character, and he is literally possessed by Unicron. Unicron actually possessed Hot Rod. So basically what we actually have is, and I'm saying basically a lot, is I'm trying not to say obviously. If you guys saw my last two videos, I tried to say obviously a lot. Now I'm saying basically a lot. Trying not to. So bear with me, guys. But he getting possessed by Unicron, like, is literally meaning it's just basically he was, turned evil. Once that evil is gone, it should be gone from him. In the same way, Megatron, according to this universe, used to be Galvatron. And that was a big time reveal where I was like, oh my gosh, like, are they making this like part of like the G1 cartoon? What's the story with this? I don't understand. Like, this is actually kind of like a pseudo G1 sequel, where it's not actually a sequel to any of the cartoons or the comics, but it's set in a universe that has some of those same events have taken place. So Unicron is a floating head above Cybertron, and Megatron used to be Galvatron at one point, and the Matrix of Chaos wants to possess him, turning him back into being Galvatron again. Of it, I was like, man, I am bored to tears, because the episodes, like, going from episode to episode, take their time to get to where they need to get to. The action is very slow. It's like it moves in such a slow rate that I actually was like falling asleep in the middle of some of the episodes. Some of the stuff was really cool though. The Dinobots, having Greg Berger back as Grimlock again was great. It was fantastic. It was awesome, because you can tell he actually loves being in the role. And even though they probably wanted the roles to be literally read so stoically, like everybody else is just kind of like, I'm here, why don't we just go here? Like Megatron, like the guy who does Megatron does it really well. Greg Berger does Grimlock really well. And I enjoyed the heck out of that. The Dinobots themselves, they were okay. But here's something that's interesting. They used Masterpiece Grimlock for the mold instead of using the Power of the Primes mold for Grimlock. And they used third-party Dinobots for the Dinobots themselves. I'm sitting there looking at them, I'm going, those are not the Power of the Primes toys that we're seeing on screen. These are third-party fans' toys. I think it's fans' toys. I could be wrong. I don't know which mold, because I don't keep up with third-party, but I could tell that, like, from images that I've seen, those are third-party Dinobots, and they merge into Volcanicus. It's the weirdest thing ever, but he's the only combiner in the entire Prime Wars trilogy that we actually see transform and combine. We see him transform and combine in episode 1, and we see him not becoming Volcanicus. He actually separates, in like the 4th episode. And he fights off, they may actually make him bigger than he normally is so that he can fight Predaking. And speaking of Predaking, we don't see him combine either. We don't see the Predacons come in. And he just comes in as Predaking. And he's voiced by Samoa Joe, and he does a pretty good job for being a mean, monstrous combiner, because that's kind of like what Predaking would sound like. And he's powerful, and he's insubordinate, and he's a monster, and I loved it. And I loved seeing the two of them fight. But the fight was super slow. It was like literally like, and I'm like, I'm bored, because you need to like fast forward this entire series, like put it on like 1 1/4 speed, and the show would probably be a lot more tolerable. And I'm actually halfway tempted to edit the entire series and actually put it at that speed and like put it out, but of course Machinima would copyright that thing in a heartbeat. Other things to take a look. I think the dialogue was still very, very wonky throughout the entire series. I didn't care for the actual dialogue. Overlord was, I liked him as like a villain. I thought that he, you know, when he shows up, he's you know, wants to take out Megatron, and he's so hell-bent on doing so that he's willing to forego his own mission, whereas Rodimus Krong is just willing to kill other Transformers, which I'll get to the kills in a second. But it was also awesome to see Megatron and Overlord both in tank mode and firing on each other. But the jet mode didn't do anything. The jet mode was just around somewhere, and then it just came back and he transforms into robot mode. So he didn't even need to have his jet mode at all because they just used his tank mode. But Rodimus Krong, he's a murderous you know, incarnation of Unicron, basically. He kills Sludge, and I don't know about you guys, but man, I was really annoyed by that. I was annoyed by the fact that he killed Sludge. He literally decapitates Victorion in like, you know, like as if she was nothing. Rodimus Krong wins. Fatality. And you know, they also end up killing the other combiners. They killed Menasor, Computron, and Devastator, and they killed them pretty brutally. And we actually see their sparks leave their bodies, which tells us something about combiners that actually holds true to my combiner videos, is that the combiner sparks are pretty much comprised of the other Transformers themselves. So when they merge to form one bot, their mind is melded, and it seems like their sparks become one spark, so to speak. And when they separate, their sparks go back into, you know, separation. So it's kind of interesting to take note of that, because at least in this universe, combiners, if you kill the combiner while they're in their combined form, you kill all of the Transformers, because they actually mourn about not only Victorion herself, but they mourn the Torchbearers as well. They mourn Sludge. And they also, you know, at the end of the entire series, Optimal Optimus, I'm never going to get used to that. He is the one that destroys, you know, the Matrix of Chaos, which is literally being held by Megatron, so both of them get blasted away. So Megatron dies at the end, and he actually, in this entire series, he was my favorite character out of all of it, because he was the one who was growing the most, and I didn't really want to subscribe to the idea of Megatron being good, but they did this pretty well. He's still who he was. He's still like the Decepticon that, you know, he always shall be, but here he is, he's leading, and he just doesn't, you know, he has an attitude. It's a different version of Megatron. He actually starts saying like, I belong to nobody, and, you know, nobody summons Megatron, and, you know, I'm like, come on, this is like, you know, it's kind of like the one shall stand, one shall fall. These are lines that, like, you don't really want to hear on repeat. They're good for the time that, like, for the scenes that they came out in, and just repeating it is almost like, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. But it did work for this specific scene, in a way. I'm kind of like in the middle of it, you know, with that. But the end of the series, they bring back Optimus Prime. I was shocked. I was really shocked, and he's in like pristine shape. And the reason why he came back to life was because he was connected to the Matrix of Leadership. The Matrix of Leadership was connected to the device that was supposed to destroy all of Transformers and all their sparks. And once the Matrix was disconnected, the power of the Primes and Megatron is getting destroyed by Solus Prime actually brings Optimus Prime back to life. So the power of the Primes is what revives Optimus Prime. And he allows Optimal Optimus to now be the new leader of all of Cybertron. And he's just going to, like, sit back, but I'll always be here for you. And then they ended on a cliffhanger. They ended with Starscream. Starscream himself is like as a ghost in the back, hiding in the shadows, and I'll always be here. And then it says the end. And we're like, I'm just like, man, you're gonna leave us on a cliffhanger like that? It's kind of like Transformers: The Last Night. We know that they're planning on rebooting, but we don't know if like they're going to make another movie after that. So here we're going to get another Transformers series. It's left on a cliffhanger. G1 ended on a cliffhanger with Transformers: The Rebirth. Dreamwave Comics, you know, when they went bankrupt, they pretty much like went belly up in all their stories. We never got to see how that ended. And you know, Transformers: The Last Knight seems to be a cliffhanger as well that might not get resolved. And now here we have the Prime Wars trilogy ends on a cliffhanger, because from here on, they're rebooting again. You know, they're going to do the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy is what they're going to call it. We don't know the ins and the outs of it, but we're going to find out. And I'm hoping that it's good. I really do hope that the War for Cybertron is good. But as for Power of the Primes, like I said, I didn't hate it as much as as Combiner Wars and Titans Return. I think it was okay. I think it was middle of the road. I think the dialogue was wonky. The animation is still terrible. And after I felt like empty after Titans Return, I feel like this was like a good, well-told story within its own universe. And after watching the entirety of the Prime Wars trilogy, I still think that pretty much Power of the Primes is the only one that's worth watching, but you have to watch the crap that comes before it to understand what's happening here in Power of the Primes. And kind of sucks. It does suck, but it's a bittersweet ending. I'm glad that it's over, because it's not something that I look forward to watching over again. But if you guys do want to watch it, obviously it's still on go90.com for those of you who are in the US, and I'm hoping Machinima puts it up there so that those of you who either want to watch it or just curious, can go and watch it. But those of you who are on the fence and are like, I really don't want to watch any of it, you don't have to. It's really not something that you have to put yourself through. It's not like one of those things I'm going to sit there and say, like, you need to, as a Transformers fan, you owe it to yourself to watch this. I don't feel like that with this. I think that they sold themselves short by not having the entirety of the toy line in the cartoon, but that was also restricted because the episodes were only 10 episodes, 10 episodes at 10 minutes apiece. It was too short for its own good. But I want to know what you guys think. Have you guys seen Power of the Primes? And if you thought it was any good, or if you thought it was terrible, if you liked the ending, if you liked most of it and didn't like parts of it, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, be sure to thumbs up, subscribe, and obviously check out my other videos. I have more Transformers discussion videos on the way. Be sure to check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you can help support me on Patreon, it would always be a help. And as always, guys, until next time, till all are one.